Welcome back to STRonomics. Today we're going to be talking about rent roll and why it literally doesn't fucking matter in most respects. And a lot of people rely on it. A lot of inexperienced agents rely on it.
Mm.
But I think you and I would agree that neither of us would ever use that as we're building out a proforma to truly evaluate a property. What say you?
Yes. And on two sides. So the most common situation or scenario that I hear is, Kenny, somebody sent me this property. It's previously run by a property management company, and they made $80,000. And they say it has the potential to do more if I run it.
How do they know that?
That's a good
Because
question.
I'm good, Kenny. I listen to your podcast. I can do 140. Bring it on, baby.
Yeah, 140. Yeah. Or they're just like, well, if I just update the furniture or, like use better pricing, I can make more money and do that extra $20,000, $30,000, whatever it is. So that's typically the logic. But then the question, like you just said, is how do you know that? Like, because their premise is the fact that it's currently doing 80,000, and they suspect that just by tweaking a few things that it will just start generating more income.
I think you got to go back to John Hodgism and the mastermind markup of 30%. You got to look at your performance based on STR insights, air DNA, the percentile, whatever it is, over a period of time and multiple properties. And then if you go into a new market, you don't even know the new market. I think the
Right.
problem, what you're talking about, is you're talking about investors that probably aren't as savvy as we are, that are looking at that. Oh, that was a property management company. Evolve was managing that, or Vacasa was managing that. I by default can do better than them. That okay, well, what exactly are you going to implement that they did not, that's going to generate more revenue? Just buying new couches or throwing up a mural, in my opinion, isn't going to do that for you. It's the combination of about 5 to 10 different factors.
Correct. Absolutely. So if the property isn't in the right location to begin with, there's a revenue ceiling, a revenue potential that it has. So it could be tapped out, and just adding and updating whatever, like you could completely do a gut rehab if you wanted to on a property, and it still not generate that much more revenue because it's not in the right location, or it doesn't have the right amenities. Or, like I had a call with somebody today about a pool property, adding a pool to their beach property in Panama City Beach. And they're like, well, we've added all these other amenities. We're not sure, like, if we can get out of the $80,000 range. How do we do that? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, add a pool. They're like, it's going to be like $75,000 to $100,000 to do that. Okay, well, you
And
just
sell
add,
your house and move closer to the beach and get better views.
yeah, or yeah, just get rid of the house. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's like that's the only way. It doesn't matter if you put a bunch of cool design and decor, constantly tweak your prices. You might get it from like 80 to 85, maybe 90 or something, but like you're not going to just flip the switch and like
But if
turn
you're
something amazing.
also if you're a short 5-minute walk to the beach, you're already fucked anyway. So just don't spend the 80 grand on adding the pool.
That's very true. Yep.
Right. So I mean, a lot of people, and I just say that to give context, right? Because they take exactly what we say as gospel. Hey, I'm on the other side of whatever the road is. I'm on the other side of
Right.
30A, and it takes 10 minutes to walk. But if Bill and Kenny said add an $80,000 pool, and we're gonna crush. It doesn't work that way. Location, proximity, views, nail those first three, and then you don't even have to worry about all the other stuff. So if you have a crappy location with no views, a pool may not fix your problem.
Correct. Yeah, no, that's exactly the way you look at it. I mean, understand the market, what works in the market, why people are going there, and why this property is generating what it's generating is going to be key in determining if it can actually do that. We talked about the enemy method, Avery Carl's enemy method, and evaluating properties nearby to get true comps in a range. We want a tier range of what the property can potentially do. I personally, I know you before the call we were talking about it. You don't even ask for the rent roll. I do just to see what they do, but I never run that in my pro forma. I want it. I'm curious. I want to know what they were currently doing, and just see, because a lot of times too, I can use that for negotiation. Like, you said this was a revenue performer, but you're only making $20,000. Like, what, this property isn't worth 700,000. So
That is the only time that I would ever request
yep.
it, to be honest with you, and because I know negotiation 100%. But it's funny, the reason I don't ask for it, I'm not saying I don't ever take it. I never request it. Because especially if I go into a new market and I have to use a new agent that I don't have a relationship with, if they try to sell me based on current rent roll and tell me everything's great, look at what these people are doing, then I literally might switch the freaking agent because they don't know anything about what's going on and how people really should be underwriting properties. And I think that's one of the telltale signs of an inexperienced agent or somebody that's trying to oversell. You know what I mean? So I do look at it, but I never request it on my own. I don't take it into consideration, as you stated, into a proforma. I'm going to use STR Insights, AirDNA, Rabu, Mashvisor, and combine everything, to try to get the best data that I can. But I also know historically what I am producing over the 90th percentile, in your platform, STR Insights, and in AirDNA. And if I know that, then I can give myself a pretty good barometer if I see how that property is being hosted. So I'll still do the enemy method. I'll still look, still go in and look at their calendars. I'll look at what they have booked. I'll look at all of that type of stuff. But I might have a little bit different opinion if I was in the 50th or 75th percentile as a host. Then I might really take that into an account. But the other thing that we never know in regards to that rent roll, Kenny, is what is that host, what is that PM, what is that co-host doing off platform, right? And that's a thing that's really, really challenging because we also don't know how people manage Airbnb and Vrbo. Some people don't have their calendars synced and they manually update them. Some people may have a ton of owner stays. You could get a rent roll of 60 grand and them not this, and then you go in and you look at the calendars booked all through the winter. And it may not be a snowbird. It could be a direct booking snowbird. It could be that they go and they stay at the property for X amount of weeks or months. There's a lot of due diligence that has to go into it's not just binary looking at an end user of a number. Would you agree?
Yes. I mean, I'll say it like 20 times, like, yes, because it's, you need multiple comps. You also need to understand, I've seen both sides, and everybody thinks it's the one side that usually happens when someone sells the house. It's always underperforming. It can do better. There's so much more potential. But I'm
That's
hearing
emotional, Kenny.
it is.
You know that as well as I do.
Yep. And I keep hearing, and I'm hearing more and more of these stories where people bought the property. It was previously making X amount. Like, one person was like, it was making 130,000, and now I only made 80,000 on it. And you're like, well, that's a $50,000, delta.
Did we talk to the same person today?
Maybe. I don't know. He posted the comments on we can say, but anyway, yeah, it's kind of, and then I hear, but here's the thing, like, we're hearing this, you're hearing, I don't think it's the same person because I heard this like months ago, but I'm continually hearing this. And I even did this. So I posted a reel as I'm trying to figure out how to make better reels. So if you go watch it, bear with me.
Would that be on Instagram at Kenny_Bedwell?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So thank you. So I posted a reel though about this property that somebody sent, and it was off market. We're seeing a lot of these off market ones where sellers are like, "Oh, I'm trying to buy something bigger." That's usually, you ask them, "Why are you selling your property?" "Oh, I want to buy something bigger."
That's code for I'm not making enough money on the property currently.
Bingo. There you go. So exactly. So that's what we got. My client's like, "Kenny, what do you think this will do?" And she's like, "Well, the seller did $60,000. So the listing price of the property is $650. Seller did $60,000 in 160 days, and that was for the full year, like in a full year. But they didn't maximize this, and this, and they believe it has potential to do over 100, and yada yada yada. Like, just like the story, and it builds, and you're like, And then I go in there, I find the property in STR Insights. I then pull it into STR Insights and I say, okay, cool. Based off of what it did at the beginning of 2022 versus the beginning of 2023, like the first 6 months, comparing year over year, first half, that property in 2022 in the first half did $42,000. So in the first half, that was like its peak season time where it made $42,000, and then 8,000 the back half. But in in 2023, it only made 35,000. So it's already down year over year. So, and they haven't done anything different, and they're losing money. Therefore, they're selling it, trying to scale. So anyway, long story short, we just can't really take what people are saying about, especially sellers, oh, this property's got so much potential, and if you just add X, Y, and Z, it's going to make so much more money. They don't know. And if they did know, they wouldn't be selling it unless there was some sort of like crisis or emergency. So, but most of them, there isn't. They're trying to get out of it and trying to put that money somewhere else. So
that's the bullshit alert. Bullshit alert. Bullshit alert. The only reason people sell fucking real estate is when it's not making money. So whenever somebody's trying to sell something and they give you that story, John Hodge kind of, from the super team kind of coined this. Don't tell me a story, just show me the proforma.
Yep.
Right? If somebody is trying to sell a property, they are selling because it's not generating enough cash. It's not generating enough cash on cash return, enough IRR, whatever acronym you want to look at. Right? At the end of the day, it's underperforming for them. If it was performing, they would hold on to it. Unless there is a true life event, which doesn't happen every time, because every time you look at Airbnbs for sale, oh, I'm selling this high performing property so I can invest into a boutique hotel or I can level up my properties. I get that. But you know what? Just let it talk for itself. Let the numbers do the talking. It's just it's the BS meter that goes off when people lead in, saying those things. And the seller has no idea how you're going to host, and you have no idea how the seller hosted. Just plain and simple. Can you tell quite a bit by design, location? Is it updated? Is it new paint? Is it the right colors? Just all those things, the amenities, that type of stuff. Yes. But once again, you've got to have that entire canvas to go in and completely repaint. And I think you have, I got to advise everybody, don't even look at the rent roll unless you're going to use it, as Kenny stated, for negotiation. That's the most valuable thing I can consider from a rent roll, because especially if it doesn't compare, if it's way off from STR Insights or AirDNA.
And then, I mean, the way I do it too is I say, oh, what are the financials? I get it. And then I look at it. It's usually like a lot of times they'll try to put it like 10%. So that what they made was 10% of the purchase price. And I always ask, how is this going to pencil out? Well, you got to look at I'm not buying based on potential. I'm buying based on like what it can do, like what it is doing, and what I can do and what the properties in the area are doing, and none of them are doing more than that. So how is this going to pencil out? Make the numbers work for me. And so what we're doing is putting in offers based on revenue of projected revenue, not revenue of what the property actually did as a short-term rental, but what we're seeing other properties and comparables do in a range, good, better, best modeling. And we're making offers based on revenue rather than just price of what sellers are offering. There's a lot of sellers that are willing to negotiate today. I'm seeing a lot of seller concessions. People saying, well, it's listed at 650, but there's some wiggle room. Hearing that a ton. And so, there's opportunity. You just have to be very smart and careful about it too.
I think a lot of people don't understand the ramifications of trying to avoid paying tax, Kenny. And, they will over expense in their properties and in their businesses. They will do the same thing with their personal expenses, their personal finances, to try to get their tax burden down. And when you do that personally and you don't have a high enough income, then you don't become bankable. And when you do that with your property, then it doesn't become sellable. Right. So I think the tax return tells everything. And, I'm seeing astute investors when they are even buying properties, if they're owned in an entity, to where they're asking for tax returns as opposed to just rent roll, because you're actually buying a business. especially
Yep.
if somebody's trying to sell you based on the revenue of that property. You are legitimately buying a business. That doesn't mean they can go and do a fucking cap rate unless it's a quadplex or higher, right? You're still buying based on comps, but if they're going to leverage their rent roll, then you better treat it like you're doing an acquisition of a coffee shop or a restaurant or a tire business or whatever it is, and go through that true
Show me the
evaluation
returns.
process. What's
Yeah.
that?
Show me the returns.
I mean, I've asked for it
Yeah.
twice. I'm going down for a client tomorrow to Gulf Shores for a duplex, and they're trying to sell me the same thing on rent roll. I literally asked for returns and they've refused. Okay, well then that's fine. That tells me that's the yellow light going off that it's not going to match what they produced in their rent roll,
Yep.
right? And it's one of those deals where they have the rent roll public in the listing, which you see very rarely. Usually it's really great. This one's probably in the
Great income
60th.
producing property.
Yeah, it's probably in the 60th percentile, maybe 70th at best, but I just don't put a whole lot of stock into it. I'm selling the rent roll.
Yeah. No, I feel like, yeah, it's just I've seen it go. And on the flip side, I will say, like, yeah, I do every now and then someone gets it, and then they're producing it this, but now I'm doing here. But that is less and less common today than before.
Agreed.
So yep. So you really need to make sure that when you're evaluating, like, well, going back to it again, am I using comparable properties to evaluate my, what I believe this property can do? Am I also doing a good, better, best model where I'm taking into account a 15% hit in the marketplace? Because that's what a lot of markets are kind of seeing right now. And so unless the property is ultra special and unique and you never have to worry about competition, you need to be considering a slight dip in revenue with your projections beyond the trailing 12. We are getting through. What's really nice, I guess, TR Insights is updating August data. Today is the 4th of September. So like we're by the time you listen to this, the data is going to be updated. So we've got all of summer in. And yeah, it wasn't that pretty, to be honest. So everywhere has kind of seen a slight dip, summer over summer. And so we need to take that into account when we're running our projections. But there are still great deals out there. So don't be afraid.
Just don't look at the rent roll.
Don't look at the rent roll. That's right.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, everybody, on this episode of STR Anomics
Got it
with
right.
Kenny Bedwell and Bill Faith. Happy hosting, everybody.